YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, going to be bringing you a Total War Warhammer online battle replay. I'm going to play as Bretonnia this time. By the point this video is showing, you should know what my next challenge faction is. But yeah, so I brought a, I don't know if it's a good Bretonian army. I just brought 6 spears just to hold things up, and I brought 5 bows, 4 Knights of the Realm, and 2 Paladins with healing, or a Potion of Toughness, and then Leon Kerr on Biaki, or whatever his name is, the Hippogriff. Yeah. Anyway, Leon Kerr is pretty beastly. He comes with a ton of different abilities, too, that give him different buffs. So we got Beloved Son of Bretonnia, which affects all allies in range, which is map-wide, gives them extra melee attack. That's pretty big. This replenishes the hit points of combatants, which is just himself. Blessing of the Lady gives him 12% damage resistance, which is pretty big, and it affects all allies in range, which is 45 meters. Foe Seeker, Deadly Onslaught, Stand Your Ground, all the stuff that you would expect. And the Sword of Couronne is 32-second hex that takes away armor and melee defense from enemies. Now, my opponent played as the Empire, and I see this a lot online, and I'm not showing this battle for the sake of like, oh, this is going to be like the highest level tactical gameplay you've ever seen. No, I'm not coming here trying to sell you that kind of thing. My opponent brings 2 Mortars. This makes an Empire army extremely stationary. And you can see he's basically going to camp back here thinking, I'll use my long range against Bretonnia. These mortars will, you know, mortars, cannons, whatever you want to pick. So you pick your long range. Mortars potentially okay versus Bretonnia, but think about Bretonnia. Their infantry is pretty crappy. So why would you bring an anti-infantry artillery piece? You'd want to bring an anti-large artillery piece because Bretonnia tends to field cavalry, and then you would want to protect those. He brings the single general of the Empire here, flying on an Imperial Griffin. He doesn't have a healing potion, so I have to expect that this guy is not super familiar. You always want to put the healing potion on the general of the Empire or the potion of strength, one of the two. So yeah, I think he's relatively new to online play. So I'm not showing this because it's like, oh, look at me, I'm taking on some new guy. No, I want to try and give people some tips. If you're new to online play, if you're new to the online play, don't use artillery. First of all, that's pretty much like the best rule of thumb. Whenever you use artillery, your guy, unless you're playing as the Dwarfs, then you may have to. But the reason why I say that is because if you're going to sit back and use artillery, and you're not used to playing this game, you're going to give up all of the initiative in a battle. You're going to sit still, you're not going to be able to move, you're going to have to try and be reactionary to your opponent, which is typically not going to work good. I can see my opponent struggling with moving his troops around real well, so I figured that I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of give some tips. So one of the good ways to move your troops around is the Alt left click drag. So if you hold down Alt and then left click and drag, you can drag units in formation and move them around. Right click and drag is another way too. So if you select several units, 1 unit, whatever it is, you right click drag them. You can hard group units by using Control G. So you select the units you want, you push Control G, and it puts them into a hard group. It assigns that group a number for easy pick. The hard group stays in the formation, and if you click an attack order with the hard group, they will attack enemy targets in front of them as the AI best sees fit, so it can actually save you a little bit of micromanagement sometime. Now, we're going to get into this fight. Again, my opponent's pretty stationary here, so I'm feeling confident that I'm going to be able to kind of assault his position. He's kind of only moving units piecemeal here and there. My 5 archers should be able to cause a lot of damage. Now, 2 mortars have already routed a spear unit, but these mortars are pretty pricey, and routing a single 300 gold spear unit is not going to be super helpful. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of fire into these great swords because they're one of the main infantry threats. And then I swung these cavalry all the way through the woods. So again, let's talk a few more tips to beginners. So if you're playing Warhammer Online or in campaign, forests have the ability to hide the approach of units even when they're moving. So if you move units through a forest like I did these Knights of the Realm, certain units can't hide. You'll know whether or not they can because it's an ability that tells you down there. They move through these woods oblivious to my opponent, so he never saw them. I deployed them in the woods, rolled them around the woods all the way out and around and behind him, so he didn't see these guys coming. So yeah, in terms of picking your army, just a couple more tips I'll throw at you guys. So before you jump into multiplayer, it doesn't hurt to play against the AI a little. Set the AI up, give them some armies, get used to attacking the AI, get used to knowing which units are good against other units. So like in this case, he brought the General of the Empire. I don't really know if he knows what this unit is good for. It has a healing potion, and it can tank out quite a bit of damage for being a cheaper general, but against Bretonnia, again, think about it, they have some of the most deadly air forces in the Warhammer realm, so you typically wouldn't want to bring an air general versus a faction that can easily shut you down in the air. And like in this case, I was able to shut down his crossbows, which are the support for his flying lord, with my cavalry, and then we destroyed his general. So here's what's left of the General of the Empire and his Imperial Griffin. So then we're able to swoop down, and this is why I don't recommend you use artillery. So even though his infantry is over here, completely cutting my guys to shreds, because my Bretonnian infantry here stinks. Bretonnian polearms are okay, but for the most part my infantry stinks. I'm able to use key units, and like here I'm able to basically destroy his Demigryph Knights by just using a combination of Paladin Spears and a Knights of the Realm. And then over here, it's I've damaged his Demigryph Knights with Halberds pretty bad, but wasn't able to win that one. So, but yeah, I mean, it's this point, all of those support units that he had, they were left unprotected, and I was able to destroy them. So against a faction that has a lot of cavalry, you're going to have to think about how do I defend against that cavalry. So again, for new players, when you go into multiplayer, spend some time playing custom battles. Get a feel for the different units in an army, and I'll give you all a couple of tips. Let's finish this off, get a couple of cinematic views, and I'm going to go finish this this video off with some more beginner tips, basically. This is not going to be the end-all beginner tips video, but you know, it'll give you a couple of ways to potentially get started in Total War multiplayer. Do be aware that sometimes when you play in Total War multiplayer, other players aren't going to be real nice. They're going to pick goofy armies. And if you're playing in a match-made battle, at least, that could very well be the case. So just be ready for that. But if you go in with the mentality to just have fun, and you're not getting all wrapped up in whether or not you're winning every battle or something like that, you'll have fun, and you'll learn things. And sometimes you'll meet other players who enjoy playing the game. You'll make friends, and you'll have people to play the game with. It gets to be pretty fun. So again, if I were going to give beginners some tips, so quick battle is where you're going to get matched automatically with people. So if you go into quick battle, be ready to get matched against people who may just be playing for fun like you, maybe someone like me, or they may be someone who's going to be pretty try-hard in the sense that this is tied to a ladder. So if you go here and look at the leaderboards, this leaderboard is tied to this ladder right here. Wow, most wins, Ninja Hunt. Look at you, buddy. I've actually talked to this guy a little bit. He runs like a Twitter thing, so that is a lot of wins. But if we go to like the highest rating, here's your rating. So it's tied to a ladder, and everybody has a position. So like here's my position. It still hasn't improved since Chaos Week. I've got a lot of work to do. So yeah, in any case, I went down like 300 positions. But yeah, it shows you what your position is on the leaderboard. So that's what the ladder battles are. And when I call it ladder battles, it's quick battle. Then you have this multiplayer battle list. This is a better place to play as a new player. You could come in here and you could host a battle, for instance. I'm going to put a password here so nobody joins it. But you could host a battle and say, new players, please. Or if no one joins, just, you know, host it and maybe call it fun game. And then when you host it, you can ask people for the rules, and if you don't want a password, which is usually best, so if you just want random people to join, you can do that. You can sometimes look for the names of games here, and sometimes people will have see like here, Punis and Noob, I don't know if it's another language, it may mean they want noobs, or it may say no noobs, I don't know what it is. Host is here, good connection, like so people are hosting games here, and there's quite a few games up, and sometimes you can find games in here. See, 1v1 newbie. So someone's playing each other here where they're asking for new players and they're learning how to play. There is a mod that I use that is called No Lord Necessary or whatever. You can go look it up in the Steam Workshop. It's a good mod that helps you. I'll try and put a link to it. You can look it up in the Steam Workshop. It's a lot of help to you in the sense that it's going to help you be able to test units one-on-one versus each other and get a feel for how they work. Now, it's not always going to be the best thing, but let's look at custom battle. What can you do in here? Spend some time, you know, look at the different units, see what they're good at. Like swordsmen for the Empire here, what are they good at? Well, pretty much nothing, because it only lists one trait for them. They're shielded. You can see from their stats here, this unit's probably not typically going to be a good pick in multiplayer. This is more of a campaign unit. Other units that you may not think would be good, like, oh, these spearmen won't be any good, they're cheap. Again, you start to learn about multiplayer. These guys are cheap. They have a bonus versus large. It says this right here, anti-large. You need to learn how to look at the stats on here. Weapon strength, it breaks it down between armor piercing, bonus versus large. You can see all the different stuff that go into weapon strength. Sometimes there's things that go into melee attack, like it might have a magic symbol next to it. Knowing all these different unit characteristics, coming down here, taking a time to look at it. Okay, charge defense versus large. The tooltip tells you what it means. When the unit's bracing, you get it negates the charge bonus of any large attacker. What is a large attacker? Well, it's anything cavalry-sized or larger. So take the time, read through these units, understand what the units do, know how to compare them. You can actually compare two units in Warhammer right now really easy. So like this halberd versus the spearman with shields. You can pick the spearman with shields, mouse over the halberd, and now you get all these nice little green tabs over there on the side. I can't go show them to you with the cursor, where it says, all right, the halberd has more health, it has more leadership, has more melee attack, more melee defense. It helps kind of put these up. Armor piercing, understand this. Armor piercing does damage towards armor. Every unit has an armor. The higher it is, the more it adds to their potential to negate damage that's incoming to them. The higher a unit's melee attack, the more often it's going to hit. The higher a unit's leadership, the longer it will stay in the fight without getting routed. So take the time to learn all these, play some campaign, play some custom battles, get used to moving your troops. Again, just to give you all like a quick demonstration here, I'm just going to take I'm going to just get a Dwarf Lord. They're set to defense. I'm going to take a Dwarf Lord there, and then I'm going to just take me a random auto-generate army, and I'm going to start up a battle real quick and just kind of show you a couple of these movement tips, because I love seeing new players come to multiplayer, but I'm worried that sometimes you'll come in, you'll get beat, and you may eventually quit, and so I want to kind of tell people how to get used to multiplayer so that you can figure out how to play better. So let me teach you just a few things. So unit groupings. Let's say that I want to group these crossbowmen, the free company, and the handgunners. So you can. So first of all, I can move them by right-clicking, right? And you can use the keyboard to increase rank and file. I think with if I can remember what it is. I don't remember which key increases rank and file right now, to be honest, but there's a key that does it. You're not going to use it that often. Right-click and drag is the easiest way, so you can spread your guys thinner if you want to cover more ground, or you can put them thicker if you want to make them more defensive. So you can kind of, right-click and drag units. You can, spin this around the pivot point. You can bring them into whatever direction. This works when the battle starts, too. I can right-click and drag, and my guys will automatically run forward. The other way that you can move people in a formation without actually putting them in a formation, so let's say that I want these spears to come in right here behind these missile units. So I get them set up in the formation I want there using the right click and drag. I can then left click drag to select all these units, and then I can hit Alt and I can left click on one of the units. You can see that it brings up the little four-way cursor, and I can now drag that formation anywhere I want to go. So you see that? Well, what if you want to rotate it? Let go of the Alt button like I just did. Push down on the control button, and now it turns into the rotate. And when I go left and right, I can rotate this formation. As long as you don't let go of the left click at any point, you can keep adjusting this. So now I can push back down on Alt, and I can move them side to side. So learning tricks like this about how to move your units better. Now, what if I want my units to move in formation, but different units have different speeds? Let's see what that looks like real quick. So, just to give you an example, I'm going to put this gunner out here, and I'm going to put the Demigryph Knights right behind it. And I'm going to give you an example of what happens here. So again, this is for new players. And hopefully, like I said, we get lots of new players to Total War. I'm happy to have them. So if I just select both these units and I give a movement order forward, you can see they're going to move up side by side to each other. That's most of the time not what you're going to want them to do. So let's reset. And also, just the single right click is a walk order. You can push R to make them run, or you can even double right click to make a unit run. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight. So let's put these guys together. Now let's say that I want the cavalry to move right behind the gunners, but I don't want them to outrun the gunners. Well, let's try our left-click drag and see what happens. So I'm going to Alt, left-click drag. The Demigryph Knights run, the gunners run, and the Demigryph Knights run all over the top of the gunners. So let's say that that's not what I want to happen. Especially if you're going to move across the map, you don't want your cavalry to get out in front of you. Okay, well, what the heck's happening over here? I don't know what's going on. I hear stuff like it's hitting me, but anyway, I'm going to select the units I want. I'm going to push Control-G, which is a hard group. You can see that there's a group now around these guys that says 1. So I can, for instance, press 1, and it selects them. Let's say that I'm across the map, and I want to quickly get to Group 1. I can push it twice, and it brings me right to Group 1. See how nice that is? This lock right here means that it Control Group Lock. If you unlock it, it's just going to help you select these guys. That's all it's going to be for. They're not going to move in formation. If I lock it again, it's going to make them move in formation. So if I single right click, they're both going to move in formation, and they're going to stay right where I want them to be. If I run forward with them, they'll both run, but the Demigryph Knights won't overtake the gunners. If I right-click drag, I can do the same thing. I can put them in whatever formation I want, but the Demigryph Knights won't overtake the gunners until they're supposed to, so it's pretty handy the way you can do this. If you left-click drag, though, even when they're hard grouped like that, notice how the Demigryph Knights are going to run these guys over. So take the time, learn the controls, learn what's down here on the bottom of the screen. Guard mode. Guard mode means your guys, if you give them an attack order, won't pursue an enemy once they defeat it. This is very handy for skirmishers or artillery that you don't want to move out of a formation if you're playing defensive. So that's useful to be known. This is the melee mode for a missile unit. You can take a missile unit and put them into melee. Skirmish mode for a missile unit. They'll run away automatically if they're being threatened by a melee unit. Fire at will. You can turn that off. Your guys won't fire on a target that's closest to them. You can pick it, or you can turn it on and they'll fire at the closest target. So that's kind of how that works. So yeah, take the time, learn all these little tricks. Hopefully some of these were useful to you. What other kind of things can I help you with if you're a new player? What kind of tips do you want? Also look in the comments. A lot of times my viewers have a lot of great tips for new players. And just kind of, if you all have any beginner armies or beginner factions or any other advice like this for the player that I played today or any other new player, leave that down in the comments. Give them some ideas. Personally, I think that the Empire is a good faction to pick for a new player. The Vampires are also a good faction to pick for a new player to multiplayer. Work with those kind of factions. Play them in campaign. Get to know them a little bit. Play them in custom battle, and then start playing them online. And as you gain a little more confidence, you can learn. So also, watching people's videos helps a lot. I try and make plenty of multiplayer battles. There's a guy named Turin who makes multiplayer battles. There's a lot of other YouTubers who make multiplayer battles. There's Ninja Hund who plays a lot of them on Twitch. He's the one that you just saw up there. You can go watch these people, and that will help you get tips also. Anyway, these are some of my tips to beginners. Hopefully this was useful. A lot of you have asked me about this, but I haven't made one anytime recently. I will see you soon.